That little child is smarter than most theologians and sure smarter than most Baptist preachers I know, and sure smarter than me, and all preachers, all of them. Many in the Pentecostal and charismatic circles don't even want to talk about deliverance. And you want to know why? Because the enemy doesn't want you to be delivered. And until you understand what he's doing to you and in you and the crop he's growing, you're going to live defeated. You're going to walk out of here and see everything in a different light. I'm going to do something that I've never done. And I started praying about this when I found out we were going to do the conference. I said, God, you ordered me not to use notes when I started preaching. And at last count, I know I delivered, and it was years ago, I quit counting, over 30,000 sermons. Never used a note. I'd read a quote, never a note. I started praying in this conference. I said, God, sure wish I could use some notes. He said, well, it really isn't an issue with me. I said, well, you know, now if I ever even try, I just get totally confused. Because you told me just trust you and I'd flow. And I said, but I sure wish I could use some notes. And so he told me, well, it'd be all right. And look here, I've got really neat notes, because I always study and I have notes and I get full of my subject. But I said, Lord, I feel like maybe I'm supposed to look at them. And everybody see me look at them and check them. And God said, I'd like you to do that. I'd like you to see that nothing's impossible for me, and that you don't ever have to get locked into what I do. You just obey me. And so it'd be all right if you look at the notes. And so this morning as Robert was preaching, I pretty well scrapped the whole message because Robert covered about half of it. I said, well, he's already preached it. And so the Lord said, well, you can look at them, kind of see if Robert missed a point or two in your notes. And I really feel like it's pleasing to him that I'm doing it. Now, here's what I wrote down. Some of these notes I wrote around my notes. Christians cannot be possessed by demons. Lost people are possessed. All of them are the children of the devil. Christians are not. We cannot be possessed, but we can possess them in the house. And what difference does it make if somebody's robbing you and taking everything you've got, if he's got a loaded gun or an unloaded gun? Once he convinces you, he's got you under arrest. What difference does it make if he's holding you captive inside the house or he's inside the house holding you captive if you're a prisoner? Why are we discussing where he is? It's what he does. Christians are not possessed by the devil, but they are oppressed by the devil. They are assaulted by the devil, deceived by the devil, held captive by the devil, and it simply doesn't matter where he is. But it's obvious even from Robert's testimonies, they obviously get inside our being in some way, not in possession, because you are the ones who have control of God's cultivated field, and you can yield your field to whichever farmer you want to yield it to. Who's plowing and planting and growing their crop in your life? That's the question. Last night, Robert made very clear the predators, and I'm helped to emphasize the birds of the air. I actually talked to you about a pack of coyotes or wolves and how I've observed a coyote attacking a very strong animal. They always look for the weaker. I thought I detected a slight limp in this animal. Maybe that's why they said he's vulnerable. Somehow, and they came after him and they got him. On our way home last night when I left here, maybe 4 or 5 blocks from where we live, over in Colleyville, there are many open fields and some small new subdivisions, many of them with seniors who have pets. As we were driving down the road, headed toward the entry to our subdivision, a huge, mature coyote ran in front of us. I know enough about wolves and predators. He was the lead dog, and he was headed straight into the subdivision. And I turned and I said, he's going after somebody's pet. And either Betty or Paul may have said, maybe a child. I said, there is the predator, the wolf, headed into our communities and our neighborhoods to find the most vulnerable of all those we love. Predators, bobcats, and coyotes have been killing pets recently all around the Metroplex. Listen to this. Once a coyote or a wolf gets comfortable around humans, they are fearless. The great accounting now is they put protection on wolves to make certain they're not extinct. They say, you watch this. If you ever see a wolf looking at you and watches you and does not run, that wolf will kill in a matter of days. Once the wolf, the enemy, gets into your community, into your subdivision, into your house, yes, even your state or your nation, he is going to attack the most vulnerable and the most precious we've got. And the enemy is taking our children out by the millions. Over 50 million aborted in the wombs. How many millions already hooked on internet porn and despicable practices to where many of them will never know what a normal relationship is because they're such damaged goods. God says, run from immorality, every other sin, but this one is against your body. I'm telling you, the immorality damaged me, everything about me. And today we're being assaulted, and only God can break that yoke of bondage. Only God can free our minds. And that's what he wills to do. But the enemy is in our midst. By the way, can I ask you something? Did you at any point last night see Jesus? He carried me in a direction I had no idea he'd carry me. I knew it was him. Did you know the most famous preacher in all of England years ago was a preacher who started when he was 19. And he filled the great London tabernacle before he even got out of his teens. They said from the time he began preaching as a boy until the end of his life, the London tabernacle was totally filled. They had to actually move him when he was still a teenager into what it was the Coliseum or Fairgrounds. And it was packed. His name was Spurgeon, Charles Haddon Spurgeon. I guess one of the greatest compliments I ever had was W.A. Criswell sitting in Pennington Field in the Hearst Euless Stadium and listening to me and coming to me and saying, oh boy, I never heard anything like it. And then I go to his office and he says, son, you're like Spurgeon. And I began to preach it every off Sunday at First Baptist Dallas, then the largest Baptist church in the world, one of the largest. He said, you remind me of Spurgeon. I didn't know who Spurgeon was. He told me a little, then I read the life of Spurgeon. One night a man went to hear Spurgeon. By the way, I took that as a tremendous compliment. And by the way, you saw the gift to communicate, even as sweaty as I am. And by the way, this is the first day the air conditioners worked this week. It worked while Robert preached last night. Then when I got up, it quit again. I don't think it's quit yet. I think I'm just, doing what Billy Graham wished I wouldn't do. I just can't help it. But listen to me. I preached with the gifting of God. And because I got out of intimacy with him, I could still function in the gift. And yet I was totally trampled under the foot of the enemy. I had the gift of the Spirit, but not the fruit of the Spirit. I stopped really loving people. People were an irritation to me. They were an annoyance. Robert said, on the golf course, I didn't behave right. I wanted to stomp you. I'd talk to you after we got through. And I intended to win. I remember playing with a golf pro who had played Jack Nicklaus in the PGA playoff in Dallas years ago. And he had a one-stroke lead on me on the 15th hole. We were both under par. I remember like yesterday. And we got a greenskeeper that's in the sand trap, and he's just kind of raking the trap. And this pro golfer, Dave Reagan, went over and crawled down in the trap, and he started talking to the man about Jesus. And the man's standing there with a rake, and he's crying. And I'm standing up there, and I got a 2.5-foot birdie putt to tie Dave. And I'm standing there, I cannot believe that guy's in that trap, and I got a 2.5-foot birdie putt to beat him. Now, you talk about bondage. I'm more concerned about a stinking birdie putt than I am about a man's soul. Shame on me. Shame on me. I'm so sorry. but it was the truth. I had a gift to preach, but the enemy was stomping on me. And it all began to happen because I was too busy for God, too busy for His Word, too busy for intimacy that had led me on the journey in the first place. And I was whipped. Well, Spurgeon had this incredible gift too. And one night a man went to hear him, and he couldn't get a seat, and went back the next and the next and the next. And he walked away the last night and commented out loud, "I'll never be back to London. I'll never get to hear the great preacher of England." And a man overheard him, said, Sir, did I understand you to say you wanted to hear my preacher? Did you want to hear my pastor? You want to hear my pastor?" He said, "Oh, yes, but I will never be back." He said, "Sir, I'm an usher. I have a seat reserved down front. Sir, you can go and you can take my seat. One condition, when you come out, I want you to tell me what you thought about my pastor. What'd you think about my preacher?" When the crowd filed out, the usher was waiting. The man walked right by him in a daze and never turned. The man overtook him and he turned him around and he said, Sir, I said, if you took my seat, you have to tell me, what did you think of my pastor? What did you think of my preacher?" He said, "Oh, I don't know. I never saw him. I saw only Jesus. Only Jesus." I feel like we got a glimpse of Jesus many times this week. In His Word, mighty to deliver, mighty to save, mighty to hold, mighty to care. I feel like you've seen Him. Listen, people need to see Jesus in you. What got Robert's attention? Something happened. When Robert was traveling with me a few weeks later, we were in Northern California, Redding, in a citywide crusade. After the service, that's when I first introduced you to playing golf back then. But this was after my time, but you had seen me play because you used to go and watch me. You know, and then finally you started playing. And you knew how much you need God's help to play. But Robert and I were in the motel room with our oldest daughter, Rhonda, a daughter I referred to who sent us the text message. She's 15 or 16 years old. And Robert and I are just sitting and we're talking about the Bible. And I've already just preached my heart out. And all of a sudden we look over at Rhonda and she's staring at me. She's staring at me. I said, "Honey, what's wrong?" She said, "Daddy, you're just so different. You're just so different." It was a compliment. Let me tell you something. Betty knew I was different. My staff knew I was different. Most amazing of all, I knew I was different. I was amazed every day when I got up and I was confronted by a situation, something that would have startled me and caused me to react almost out of control. It was like someone else showed up at the door of this house. It amazed me. I shall never forget being with all three of our children in a Burger King, waiting for our fast food. If you ever see me in a fast food line, you ever see me in a toll booth line, if you ever see me in a popcorn line, don't get in my line. My line does not move. You see, when you're full of the Spirit, listen to me, be ye filled to overflowing with the Spirit. When you're filled to overflowing with the Spirit, you have the fruit of the Spirit. Make a mental note of this. It's a singular fruit. It's not the fruits of the Spirit. I know a lot of fruity people in the Spirit.